At my sister's wedding, I discovered an incredible truth. I owned my happiness. Father was shocked. As Sarah stood beside her younger sister, now glowing with joy under a blooming arch, the thrill of wedding bells crashed against the weight of patriarchal expectations. Here they were, in the picturesque town of Bedford, Ohio, celebrating an idyllic union while an insatiable tightening in her chest grew tighter. The laughter and dancing at the reception played like a distant melody, an echo of joy that felt alien to her. I should have been the one to marry Max, she thought bitterly. A childhood joke meant to be light-hearted. But what lay beneath was the gnawing weight of her father's voice. You must set an example for your sister Sarah. Excellence always. And Mom's sweet, faded smile weighed on her consciousness too, overshadowed by her father's demands. When had she traded canvas for chalkboard? The whirl of a decorated cake and twinkling lights blurred around her as she glanced toward the back, her gaze landing on an elderly guest. Ms. Delgado, the retired art teacher, infused a warmth that radiated with wisdom. The woman's eyes sparkled behind thick glasses, and Sarah felt the stir of memory's brushstrokes dancing on canvas, color splotches that could brighten even the dullest day. Sarah dear, Ms. Delgado's voice pulled her from deep reflection. The world misses your light when you don't create. Her breath caught, tangled in swirling emotions. What if I start painting again? Sarah had let the thought inch forward, but years of neglect crushed it back down. She had settled for duty and projections of perfection, locking her ambition behind layers of guilt. Before the words could even take shape, she turned to face the dance floor, where her father's authoritative figure loomed large. The thoughts collided in her mind, discomfort mixing with determination. I deserve to pursue what makes me happy, Dad. The words erupted before she could regret them. Silence fell like a heavy blanket, all eyes toward her with shock running thick among family and friends. You'll end up a failure just like those who think art can feed you. He shot back, disbelief cracking his stoic facade. The tension tightened between them, each syllable thudding into the air, laden with unspoken years of expectations. All at once, the floor pulsed with unsaid truths and heavy breaths. Whispers bubbled among the guests, uncertain melodies of loyalty clinging to tradition. She fought her rising urge to flee while battling the truth displayed in the astonished faces. She had always been held back. The intensity escalated, making her question if she could brave this confrontation. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Maybe my happiness is worth the fight, she thought, overcoming the tightening grip of anxiety. What if my path isn't like yours? She leveled her gaze, muscles tensed, heart uncertain. The party spun around them, a vivid backdrop to this stark familial tableau. Every painted dream hovered just out of reach. Yet the ambition ignited inside her a pulse of rebellion intertwined with fear. Living authentically means redefining success, she pressed, each word laced with trepidation but imbued with a flickering spark. Would he hear her? Would he acknowledge the daughter who wasn't perfect but passionate? He stared, reeling with a blend of fear and disappointment she had never faced before. In that moment, as hope and dread collided, the dance of their lives unraveled, and Sarah knew this confrontation was only just beginning. As the heavy silence enveloped the reception hall, Sarah's heart thundered in her chest, reverberating with uncertainty and burgeoning resolve. She felt every gaze weighing in, pulling her deeper into this revelation. Slicing through the festive ambience was the sharp edge of her father's disapproval, stark against the laughter of the crowd. Each silent moment stretched like a taut canvas, and she recognized she stood at the precipice of a decision that could redefine her identity. Failure, she echoed internally, questioning why that word loomed so large. Was it failure to abandon expectations in pursuit of art? To seek joy in brushstrokes instead of the predictable path set by her father? The uncertain faces of her family blurred into a canvas of doubt, but there too was the flicker of opportunity, the glimmer of something greater than she had ever allowed herself to imagine. You may call it failure, but it feels like freedom, she declared, grappling with both fear and determination. She felt the prickling urge to break free, to unravel the tightly coiled threads of her past. In that electric moment, she found herself questioning not just her father's definition of success but her own. What if her true purpose lay waiting, shrouded in the colorful chaos of paint and canvas? Without waiting for the storm of dissent that might follow, she turned from the dance floor, the epicenter of her family's expectations, and stepped back into a familiar isolation. The world swirled around her, filled with shimmering lights and boisterous laughter. But in that moment it was as if she entered a sacred space of introspection. Was the risk worth the potential heartache? She wondered. The weight of uncertainty bore down, yet she breathed deeply, letting the clarity of her vision flicker to life. Outside the confines of her father's judgment, what did happiness truly look like? As she navigated her thoughts, glimpses of past failures flickered like distant memories. The half-finished canvases in her attic, the dusty brushes, and the vivid dreams whispered from the corners of her mind, long buried beneath the weight of responsibility. It began to matter less what others thought of her choices. Whether her father could appreciate her endeavors or not, she craved the pursuit, the act nothing less than the assertion of her own voice. Miss Delgado was right, she mused, recalling the warmth of the elders' encouragement amid the swirling chaos. Maybe the world has missed my light. And with that, she left the thrumming reception behind and stepped outside into cool evening air, where the world still held its breath for what could be. She resolved to find a local studio, to flick the dust off her neglected canvases, and reignite her passion. It would take time, certainly doubt would likely claw at her side, but a fire had been lit. The journey back to reclaiming her art was the one path she now dared to take, armed with the knowledge she would not merely exist for others' dreams. Suddenly, an unexpected thought ignited another wave of anxiety. Will he ever accept this version of me? A shiver ran down her spine as the image of her father flashed through her mind, his authoritative voice echoing with disbelief. Yet just as quickly, she dismissed the fear. I can't remain imprisoned in his expectations. Sarah squared her shoulders. She had taken the first step. The confrontation had to be revisited not just with her father but with herself, her definitions of success, and her right to happiness. The unsteady road ahead brimmed with possibilities, a canvas yet to be painted. What would tomorrow's conversation hold? She had laid the groundwork, but the real confrontation loomed on the horizon, an encounter that could either deepen or shatter her connection with her father. The moment was approaching where she must decide just how far she was willing to go for her art, and ultimately for her happiness. The chilly night enveloped Sarah as she walked away from the vibrant chaos, her thoughts churning like waves in a stormy sea. Each step away from the hall felt weighted with the promise of impending change, yet she also sensed the heaviness of unresolved tension ambushing her resolve. Home loomed ahead like a horizon drenched in shadows, a place she'd spent too long avoiding yet could no longer evade. Inside her small apartment, the familiar scent of turpentine beckoned to her from the forgotten corner of the living room. Dust motes danced in the soft glow of her solitary lamp, illuminating a space that had become a mausoleum for her unfulfilled dreams. The easel stood silent, the canvas barren too long had it awaited the stroke of creativity. She withdrew a chair, its wood creaking under her weight, and faced the blank canvas as if it were an adversary she had to confront. The act of choosing to paint felt both exhilarating and terrifying. It was relinquishing control, displaying vulnerability, and declaring firsthand that she was seizing the autonomy she had awaited for far too long. What do I create? She pondered, biting her lip. Each brushstroke was a declaration. Every color, a reminder that she deserved expression outside the box her father had confined her to. With tentative warmth reverberating through her fingers, she lifted the brush. As tides of color mingled, she became both artist and witness to her awakening. A blend of soft blues and bold yellows emerged, shapes forming like memories long buried surfacing. The chaotic strokes flowed, and for the first time in years, Sarah felt exhilaration. The brush seemed to possess its own will, guiding her through emotions she had suppressed for far too long. Confidence swelled within her, framing an undeniable realization this was not merely a rebellion against her father. It was a pursuit of self-affirmation, a finding of identity buried deeper than any familial approval could reach. But with each stroke, remnants of doubt clawed at her, a nagging bitter voice that questioned if she was worthy of this happiness. What if I fail? The potential for unresolved tension hung thick, but she pushed forward, attempting to drown it in the vivid hues developing before her as the first artwork in years took form. A small voice within her whispered of possibilities. What if her art resonated? What if others connected with her inner chaos transformed into color and texture? However, the looming thought of her father's disapproval crept back, more menacing than before. She could hear him in her mind, dissecting her passion with cold precision, unraveling her newfound freedom with words that could cut deeper than any brush ever could. You need a real job, he would undoubtedly say. His disdain palpable. What she feared most was the impossibility of their worlds merging, the artist she could become versus the dutiful daughter she felt expected to be. Standing at this canvas, a silent ultimatum simmered in the air. A truth wrestled within her that demanded recognition. Art was not a hobby. It was her voice, her declaration, and the very core of who she aspired to be. As morning approached, the irregular strokes of color coalesced into a vision of her true self, a self she had neglected for far too long. The rawness of her truth revealed an even larger emotional landscape to explore. The canvas hummed with the urgency of her journey, filled with questions yet unanswered. The confrontation with her father awaited on the horizon, a storm brewing unfathomably close. But as she gazed at the vibrant piece, she recognized that she needed to gather the courage not just to confront him but to firmly outline her identity, not just for him, but for her. The moment had come to redefine what familial approval meant. Determined to continue, Sarah felt the walls around her artistry fortify. She could no longer allow external dissidence to shape her reality. The day to reclaim her narrative had arrived, and she was ready to face that looming confrontation. Would it bring her father to a place of understanding, or would it sever the ties that bound her? As the sun began to rise, the question loomed like the canvas before her: what would happen when she finally spoke her truth? In the soft morning glow that filtered through her window, Sarah stood before her completed artwork, the chaos of her thoughts beginning to solidify into a clearer vision. Vibrant strokes of blue and yellow painted a landscape that was both tumultuous and hopeful, a reflection of her ongoing battle for self-acceptance. But something was simmering beneath that surface, an urge to dive deeper into her own creativity and confront the conflicting emotions competing for dominance within her mind. With resolute energy, she decided today would be the day she opened herself to the outside world. The celebration of her sister's wedding provided the perfect backdrop. It was a time when joy permeated the air, perhaps softening the edges of the familial tension she was preparing to face. Yet Sarah's pulse quickened at the thought of seeing her father again, the man whose disapproval lingered like an uninvited guest at every family gathering. As she hurriedly applied the last touches of color to her canvas, a mix of excitement and fear coursed through her. She needed to introduce her art not as a rebellion or a means of defiance, but as an integral part of who she was. Her sister was aware of her struggles. In the past months, Sarah had shared her artistic journey, and with each retelling, she sensed a flicker of pride in her sister's eyes. Perhaps today was a chance to share that journey with the family at large. Once dressed for the wedding, she caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. The woman staring back was neither the dutiful daughter nor the rebellious artist. She was a blend of both, forged through years of pressure and heartache, now equipped with a newfound courage. Sarah inhaled deeply, committing to a single mantra: "It's time to step into my power." Arriving at the venue, flowers adorned every surface, laughter echoed around her. Yet, as she scanned the gathering, her heart sank at the familiar sight of her father. He stood in a corner, towering over others, his arms crossed, an emblem of authority and judgment. "Sarah!" Her sister's voice pulled her from her reverie. "You made it! I'm so glad!" The embrace was warm, and Sarah felt a rushing wave of encouragement surge through her. "You can do this," her sister whispered, almost as if sensing the storm brewing inside her. As the ceremony unfolded, moments of joy unfolded like petals, yet each laugh felt punctuated by her father's looming presence. The reception hall sparkled, and slowly but surely, she settled into the rhythm of the evening. Conversation flowed, music played. A newfound boldness emerged within her. What if she stepped forward, shared her artwork, and invited everyone to witness her truth? After the first dance, she found herself standing in a circle of family, her heart racing. "I have something to share." The words spilled from her lips before doubt could creep in. A photo of her artwork slipped into her hand, the delicate balance of anticipation clashing with lingering fear. "Is that a painting?" her father questioned, raising an eyebrow, his voice laced with incredulity. "It is," Sarah replied, her voice steady. "It's a reflection of who I am, of my journey." The weight of every unacknowledged feeling raced to the forefront, daring her to expand on what lay beneath the surface. Her pulse hammered in her ears. "You think painting can sustain a life?" he retorted, a hint of condescension apparent. In that moment, a surge of defiance overtook her. "It's not just a hobby. It's part of who I am, and I need you to understand that." The room fell silent, every eye turned toward her. Her heart pounded. What if they didn't understand? What if he dismissed her once more? Would this be the moment she accepted failure, or would she break free? Time seemed to suspend as Sarah braced for the words that might redefine her family dynamics. The resolution she sought hung tantalizingly close, yet out of reach. Would she break through the walls that confined her? Or would history repeat itself? The moment was charged, and as Sarah steadied herself, she could no longer question her worth. What would her father's reaction mean for her future? Would she emerge into freedom or be swept back into silence? In the expectant silence, Sarah's heart raced. The weight of her father's gaze bore down upon her, a suffocating blanket of judgment that seemed determined to crush her newfound resolve. But in that moment of stillness, something shifted inside her. She felt the brush of every past disappointment, every whispered doubt she'd internalized, and she realized she had allowed these shadows to define her for far too long. "Art is a part of me," she reiterated, her voice firmer, a quiet strength underpinning her words. "It shapes my thoughts and feelings. Denying that is denying myself." A small tremor of satisfaction stirred within her as she spoke her truth, the spirit of her artwork pulsing in her veins. She did not merely advocate for her passion, she claimed her identity. Her father's expression morphed from skepticism to a narrowed focus, his eyes scrutinizing her as if she were an unsolved puzzle. "You think a painting can be a career?" he shot back, the disapproval in his tone sharper than before. "This isn't a game, Sarah. You need stability. How will you support yourself?" A flicker of uncertainty threatened to drown her newfound confidence as familiar doubts crept back in, questioning the reality of her struggles. But instead of retreating, she felt a surge of anger propelling her forward, a fierce refusal to retreat into silence. "Do you think I'm not aware of the risks? Of course I want stability. But this," she gestured to the art in her hand, "this is more than a pastime. This is my plan for peace and purpose." The surrounding family members exchanged glances, some offering sympathetic smiles, while others seemed pensive, wrestling with the sudden shift in dynamics. The tension cracked like a whip, and for the first time, Sarah could see her mother waiting hopeful. She searched her sister's eyes, reading the encouragement there and gaining strength from it. Then boldly she continued, "I've spent so long trying to fit into an idea of who I should be that I lost sight of who I really am. Every stroke on that canvas is a piece of my journey, of my battles, my dreams, and now my truths." Those around her leaned in, curiosity replacing doubt, yet her father's expression remained unchanged, a fortress of stoic disbelief. His silence loomed larger than the words she had just spoken. Would he ever understand? Was it possible for him to look beyond conventional expectations and see the passion behind her choices? "Art has the power to connect us, to heal," she added, her voice rising slightly. "It is not frivolous. It's vital. You taught us that true achievement lies in following our passion, regardless of what others might think." For a heartbeat, she saw a flicker of something behind her father's eyes. Was that recognition or just irritation? The pesky dilemma of familial bonds caught her in a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Could she risk everything for her truth? As the weight of her declaration hung heavy in the air, Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the exhilaration of vulnerability mixed with defiance envelop her. The crowd felt larger, more encompassing, and through that lens, she realized that she was not just fighting for acceptance. She was paving her own path toward self-respect, advocating for her place in the world as an artist and a daughter. Tension crackled with energy as Sarah prepared for his response. Would her father confirm her worst anxieties, or would he begin to comprehend the depth of her desire? The time has come to face the truth, she thought, the resolve settling within her like a fixture. And in that pivotal moment before her father could speak, she noticed the sudden gaze of another relative, one she seldom spoke with, who seemed to be captivated by her declaration. A sense of solidarity swept through the room, igniting the fire of possibility in Sarah's heart. Perhaps her confrontation would resonate beyond familial ties, maybe it could inspire others. But then, amidst the undercurrents of emotions, she heard the distant sound of footsteps approaching, the clashing chords of fate echoing anew. Who was stepping forward to join this unexpected moment of vulnerability? As Sarah turned toward the sound, her heartbeat quickened once more. Was this a fresh ally or a confrontation she hadn't anticipated? The air shifted, a new tension rising. As Sarah turned, the footsteps drew closer, revealing Aunt Margaret, someone whose presence was often overshadowed by family tumult. She was not the loudest, nor the most opinionated, but there was always an air of wisdom surrounding her, an understanding that made her voice both soothing and formidable. With each step, Sarah felt the pulse of anticipation hum through her veins, her heart balancing on the edge of fear and expectation. Margaret slowed as she approached, her expression a blend of curiosity and compassion. "Sarah," she said softly, "I've been watching you. It's important for you to understand that this journey you're on is not just about making art. It's about discovering who you truly are." For a moment, Sarah was taken aback by the essence of her aunt's words. They sliced through the anxiety woven tightly around her heart. How could Margaret discern the depth of her struggle without having been privy to the family's convoluted discussions? But perhaps it was the kind of deep-rooted knowing only someone with experience could possess. "Your father worries," Margaret continued, glancing at Sarah's dad, who remained stoic. "He's facing the fear of losing you to a dream he doesn't understand. But Sarah, can you see how powerful it is for you to stand here now, advocating for your passion? That takes courage." Courage. The weight of that word pressed down on her, igniting memories of brushstrokes and midnight ideas, and of hard-fought battles. Sarah's thoughts raced. Could she truly harness this newfound resolve and channel it into something sustainable? Maybe he doesn't get it, but you need to build a reality where your art speaks for you. It's time to own your happiness. Margaret's voice rang with certainty, pulling Sarah from her spiraling thoughts. A realization struck her, one that sent a ripple of energy through her entire being. Her happiness, her identity as an artist, wasn't something waiting to be discovered. It was hers to claim, to shape and to mold just like her canvases. For too long the shadows had hidden that truth, and now the light shone brightly upon it. She steadied herself, fists clenched around the paintbrush she still held, feeling it as a symbol of her journey. "Yes, I will pursue art," Sarah declared, her words swimming against the tide of discomfort in the room. This time strength rallied behind her voice, growing louder with each phrase. "It will not just be a hobby, but a career based on my passion and beliefs. I don't need anyone else to validate my choices." Her father's demeanor shifted slightly, his brows furrowing as he processed her resolute declaration. But before he could respond, Sarah surged onward, committed to revealing the changing tides within her own spirit. "And I want to take you along on this journey. I want you to see the impact that art can have not just on me, but on everyone willing to embrace it." As her words settled in the air, an unexpected light flickered in her father's eyes. For the first time, his fortress seemed to crack, revealing a trace of tentative exploration. Margaret smiled, nodding in approval while others witnessed this moment of confrontation, a shift not just in dynamics, but in Sarah's identity. "Your courage," Margaret added, her eyes sparkling with pride, "is what this moment is all about. You owning your happiness could inspire others, even those who might challenge you." The rest of the family was taken aback, caught between emerging support and historical caution that accompanied her father's traditional views. Beneath the surface, a powerful revelation blossomed within Sarah. The potential of her voice resonating beyond her family, perhaps even breaking barriers for those like her, whose dreams had lain dormant. The heavier question hung in the atmosphere. Could she not only pursue her dreams but also challenge the expectations placed on her? Was the acceptance of her passion worth standing alone against conventional views? Just as she resolved to continue digging deep, absorbing this pivotal moment, the shadows of self-doubt lurked, readying for their inevitable return. There was still a significant road ahead, fraught with challenges and confrontations, but not without the chance to pave it with her art. That moment, her father opened his mouth, a blend of confusion and determination brewing in his expression. The air thickened and Sarah could feel destiny surging closer. What would he say? Would he truly support her? Or would familial expectations reassert their grip? With bated breath, she waited for his response, her heart shadowing the fragile line between fear and hope, bracing for the unseen battle ahead. The silence stretched like a taut string, vibrating with unspoken words that hovered in the air. Sarah's heart raced, each beat a reminder of her fragile hope. She held her breath, her eyes locked on her father, searching for a glimmer of acceptance amidst the confusion etched on his face. "Sarah," he finally said, the weight of the world resting in his tone. The hesitation was palpable, each word chosen with careful deliberation. "This is not what we planned for you. Art is uncertain." His words cut deeply, stirring the shadows that lingered, threatening to pull her under. She felt the familiar grip of doubt tighten around her. The fear that maybe he was right. Was she placing her aspirations on a shaky foundation? But then another memory flickered in her mind. Nights spent sketching as the world outside faded away, her sketches vibrant and full of life. The colors danced, their vibrancy a stark contrast to the grayness of doubt surrounding her father's expectations. Stealing her resolve, Sarah interrupted his pause. "This uncertain path is where I finally feel alive. It's part of who I am, Dad. I can't keep living a life dictated by what others think I should be." Each word hit harder than the last, shaking off remnants of fear and self-doubt. She noticed her Aunt Margaret's encouraging nod from the corner of her eye. It steadied her, anchoring her resolve. "I understand you want what's best for me," she continued, her voice unwavering. "But I have to find my own way. If you can't understand that, it won't change my decision." His expression shifted subtly. Confusion mingled with an unexpressed question of resignation. Was his understanding of the best truly the best? Did he want her happiness, or a reflection of his own ambitions? The thrum of silence around them felt less oppressive now, charged with anticipation. Then, something extraordinary happened. The walls around her father's sentiments appeared to soften. Instead of engaging in a battle of wills, he paused reflectively, his brow furrowing in thought. Regret and confusion intertwined with affection. It was a new look that Sarah had not expected. "It's just scary, Sarah," he replied, voice a little steadier but still laced with concern. "You know how difficult this world can be. I worry that you will struggle. I would rather struggle for something I love than succeed in something that feels hollow," she said, an undeniable intensity fueling her conviction. The truth of her statement resonated deep within, illuminating a path that had been clouded until this moment. His response lingered in the air, unhurried, as if he contemplating the layers of her aspirations and the complexities of his worries. Sarah, grappling with herself, facing the unresolved volumes of her father's expectations, painted a vivid portrait of familial conflict. The brushes dipped deep in hues of love and fear as her father finally met her gaze. She wondered if he would create space for her truths, despite his own reservations. A glimmer of hope unfurled between them, fragile but undeniable. Would he ultimately accept this new version of her? Just as she felt on the brink of solidifying her ownership of her happiness, the echoes of doubt whispered behind her. She was ready to embrace her future, but the uncertainty that lingered in the atmosphere around her father was far from resolved. The moment hung delicately as a new notion sprouted within her. The true challenge lay before her, not only in asserting her identity but in guiding her father into accepting her journey. The path of confrontation was unfolding, and success would require more than bravery. It demanded understanding and reconciliation across the generational divide. As she prepared herself to navigate this precarious emotional bridge, a hesitance gripped her heart. Could she fully trust that this conversation was the pivotal step forward she needed? With every ounce of courage she could muster, she leaned into the moment. "Dad, what if we explored this together?" she suggested, her voice steady yet probing. "What if you allowed yourself to see little more, to experience my world through my eyes?" His expression flickered, uncertainty fighting against a burgeoning recognition. Both of their worlds hung in the balance, poised for transformation. The confrontation was but a prelude, one that could shape their relationship anew. But it required one small leap of faith. Would he take that step with her? The question lingered, echoing like a heartbeat in the silence that enveloped them. The atmosphere was thick with tension as Sarah searched her father's face for a hint of acceptance. A shift that could suggest he was ready to embrace her ambitions. What if he took that leap of faith? Yet, the shadows of doubt submerged her instincts, compelling her to question the solidity of their fragile bridge. Together she repeated, watching as the word hung between them, fragile yet potent. You and me, Dad. Just like you always wanted. His brow furrowed deeper, frustration rippling beneath the surface. What do you mean? This isn't about us. It's about your future, your choices. You can't expect me to just fall in line with this fantasy. The challenge in his voice ignited a flicker of anger in her. To him, art was something nebulous, an inadequate safety net she dared to stretch across. But this is my reality, a reality I want you to understand. She countered, determination hardening her resolve. You see these sketches? She flicked her chin toward her art spread across the dining table. Remnants of a world he had yet to embrace. This is me. I bleed ink, Dad. What's more real and valuable than that? Silence edged back into the room, a precipice between their hearts. Margaret's presence in the corner provided a grounding force, her unwavering gaze urging Sarah on. She could not retreat now, not when she held the potential for change within her grasp. What do you really want, Sarah? Her father finally asked, words softening but eyes narrowed, almost as if he was sifting through the layers of his own disappointment. She inhaled slowly. This was a pivotal moment not only for her but for him. I want the freedom to create, to explore, to live every moment as my own, even if it means falling flat sometimes. That's how one grows. With each word, Sarah sensed something shift. The intensity of her conviction leapt, vibrating with the potential of her future, while pushing against the walls he had built around his expectations. What if you let yourself experience it even for just one day? Come with me to the studio. See what it's like to be in my shoes, she ventured, finding courage in the composite images of her dreams she had sketched over the years. Your studio? He leaned back, betrayal scrolling across his features. You think I'll understand all of this from a few hours? You could spend years in that space and I'd still never really grasp it. Then let me show you before making those judgments, she replied, the steely resolve gaining volume. Do I know all the intricacies of running your practice? No. But I seek to understand you, to learn from your experiences. This isn't just my fight, it's ours. Moments passed, each filled with the weight of 1,000 unsaid words. A slight tremor crossed her father's hand, betraying glimpses of vulnerability he had kept carefully concealed. But would he summon the strength to break free? I need time, he finally whispered, the admission resonating like a distant thunder. It isn't easy for me. Neither is it for me, Dad, she replied, her heart beating wildly. But embracing what I love is the only way I'll weather those storms. And I want you beside me if you'll allow it. The ground beneath their conflicting realities began to tremble, whispers of hope threading through the seams of despair. They stood at a crossroads, and the decision to traverse this space together would not just reshape Sarah's journey. It had the potential to redeem their entire relationship from the ashes of misunderstanding. Sarah's heartbeat echoed her anticipation. Could they really step into an unknown world as allies instead of adversaries? Anxiety swelled within her, yet defiance lingered as the silence stretched again. She felt the tug of uncertainty deep within. Was this the moment that would either forge their bond or shatter it completely? Let me show you, she pleaded, her voice breaking through the thick fog, her hope dangling like a fragile thread. A brief spark of contemplation crossed her father's face, and with bated breath, Sarah wondered whether the man who had once been her greatest critic could also become her most ardent supporter. Could they step beyond former roles and redefine the journey ahead, crafting a narrative of genuine understanding? The answer loomed just out of reach, waiting to be discovered. The dim light of the kitchen flickered, illuminating the tension that lingered like an uninvited guest. Sarah sensed the weight of unspoken words pressing against her chest, a mixture of hope and uncertainty curling in her stomach. The moment felt suspended in time, and for the first time, she wondered if this could genuinely be the turning point they desperately needed. Let us go, she finally said, her voice steadying despite her racing heart. To the studio. I need you to see it. For a second, her father's expression morphed from disbelief to what could only be described as intrigue. He hesitated, wrestling with the prospect of stepping into the unknown. She watched as his body language shifted, the rigid lines of skepticism slowly unclenching as he weighed the possibility of traversing into her world. "I'll need to clear my day," he replied, each word tentative as if they were stepping onto unstable ground. Encouraged, Sarah smoothed her sketches back into place, brimming with anticipation yet intertwined with a sense of dread. What if he saw her art as nothing more than childish doodles? What if he returned to his typical derision? The thought twisted through her mind, but she pushed it aside. She had to give him a chance to understand. As her father gathered his things, one final attempt to cling to his world, she pulled out her phone, the spark of determination igniting anew within her. She sent Margaret a quick message. "P.S. coming. Today's the day." The drive to the studio was quiet but charged with an electric mix of fears and hopes. Sarah stole glances at her father, watching his expression as the streets shifted from familiar suburban landscapes to the vibrant and chaotic energy of the art district. With every passing block, she felt an internal complication. Would this trip emerge as an accepting moment or a painful confrontation? Upon arrival, the studio unfolded before them, a realm of color and contrasts, chaos and creation. The air was thick with the smell of paint and solvents, a sensory assault that felt achingly like home. "Welcome to my sanctuary," she said, her enthusiasm a thin veil over her uncertainty. "Come on in." Her father stepped cautiously inside, eyes wide with wary appraisal. The environment was both thrilling and bewildering for him. She could see him measuring the walls, judging the pieces scattered around the vibrant canvases, halfway finished sculptures, and chaotic scribbled sketches. "This," Sarah gestured broadly, "is where I unleash everything. Look over here." She led him to her easel, where a canvas stood blank but filled with the promise of a scene waiting to emerge. This often begins as nothing, a simple idea pulled from thin air, and then it transforms. Her father remained silent, but his brow furrowed as he surveyed the whirlwind of creativity. It was tangible now. The contrast between their worlds was stark, and for her it felt monumental. Would he grasp the importance of this process? Would he understand that art wasn't solely about the outcome, but also rooted in the journey of exploration, of sharing something innately personal? "Why do you do it?" he finally asked, the question genuine yet laced with skepticism. "What drives you to spend your life in here?" Sarah inhaled deeply, as if drawing strength from the air around her. "'Cause it's who I am, Dad. This isn't just a hobby or ambition, this is my identity. If I don't explore this part of myself, then what am I really doing? Allowing my heart to speak through art is the only way I feel truly alive." As she spoke, she noticed myriad emotions flickering across his face. Confusion, intrigue, and a flash of fear threaded through the lines etched into his brow. But there it was, a minuscule shift, a sign that perhaps he was on the brink of understanding. "Art can be a hard road," he murmured almost to himself. "It can be," she agreed, emboldened by her own conviction. "But if I can't embrace who I am and what I love, then I'll never truly know what it is to live. I want you to see that." With her own words igniting fresh resolve, she considered the echoes of his life. The thought stung that he had lived to uphold traditional expectations while she fought desperately to break free. The conversation could shift everything. It was a monumental crossroads, not just for her, but for them, and as they stood there, surrounded by mystery and revelation, she wondered if today would mark the beginning of their shared journey or simply prolong the inevitable distance that had once burdened their relationship. Could they finally reshape their narrative, or were they destined to remain in their separate worlds, poised perpetually at odds? Only time and this conversation would tell. As days turned into weeks, Sarah focused on her artistic journey, embracing vulnerability as the conduit for her newfound voice. She dedicated herself to her craft, flowing paint coursing through her veins, and into expression of her existence. Each stroke became a testament to her struggle for authenticity, a celebration of self-assertion that resonated deeply. Through bursts of creativity, Sarah transformed her anxiety into vibrant depictions of her journey, extracting beauty from chaos. One sunny afternoon, as she mixed colors on her palette, the doorbell rang, breaking the serene silence of her art studio. Expectation surged through her as she approached the door. This time it was her father, standing at the threshold, uncertainty masked beneath a cautious expression. In that moment, something magical unfolded, the bridging of their worlds. "I came to see your work," he said, his tone surprisingly gentle, void of the previous skepticism that had always lingered at the edges of their discussions. "Can I take a look?" "Of course," she responded, heart racing with equal parts fear and excitement. This was at the moment her willingness to share had led to. Inside, they stood surrounded by her creations, the walls pulsating with stories and contradictions laid bare. Sarah watched as her father moved from one piece to another, a mixture of intrigue and apprehension chasing across his face. Uncertainty mixed with sincerity. He studied her works, each one a thread binding her truth to canvas. "Your progression is remarkable," he admitted, his voice stronger now. "I can see how important this is for you." His acceptance was an unexpected balm, the acknowledgement she never thought she would receive. "I didn't understand how deeply art represents your journey." He stopped before her latest piece, a swirling ocean of hues, vibrant and tumultuous. "There's a rawness in this," he noted, tracing the brushstrokes with a fingertip, awe washing over him. "What does it mean?" "It's about finding balance," Sarah explained, emboldened as she shared her intentions. "The chaos represents my struggles, but there's hope amid the tumult." With each word spoken, she felt walls dissolving, a chance to forge a new understanding of who they both were, together. "I should have seen this sooner," he murmured, revealing traces of vulnerability as his brow furrowed slightly. "I allowed my fears to overshadow your dreams, and for that, I'm sorry." Her heart swelled. This was more than just words. It was a declaration of transformation, a shift they both desperately needed. In that moment, he recognized her pursuit not as a folly, but rather as a courageous endeavor to reclaim her identity. "Everything I did was to protect you, but I see now that it hurt you," he continued, voice steady. "I want you to succeed, Sarah, but it needs to be on your own terms." "Thank you," she replied simply, emotional clarity sweeping over her as she took a step closer. "I had to choose my path despite the uncertainty. But this understanding means the world to me." As father and daughter connected, a wave of relief washed over them, a release of pent-up pressures that for so long had weighed heavy in the air. Revisiting their relationship shifted their dynamics. She was no longer just his dutiful daughter, but an artist carving her own space, deserving of both recognition and respect. "I want to attend an exhibit one day," her father proposed, sincerity lacing every word. "To support your journey." The promise hung between them like a ray of hope, a step toward forging a future where acceptance blossomed instead of judgment. "I love that," Sarah exclaimed, feeling a buoyant rush of anticipation. Days turned into months, and Sarah continued to flourish within her artistic realm. With her father attending her exhibitions, they cultivated a relationship defined by acceptance, respect, and love. He witnessed the story behind her artwork, its meaning, purpose, and significance radiating beyond mere aesthetics. Newfound confidence pulsed through Sarah as her reputation began to grow. Galleries featured her pieces, and collectors expressed interest in her work. Every success solidified her place in the artistic community, amplifying the voice she had long sought. Rather than merely pursuing art as a career, she forged an identity firmly rooted in passion. Reflecting on her journey thus far, Sarah realized not only had she become the artist she had aspired to be, but also the daughter she was meant to exist as, one who owned her happiness unapologetically. Standing before a finished piece, a bold tapestry of her evolution, she savored the moment, a profound achievement underscored by her willingness to reclaim her narrative, transforming confrontation into encouragement. Sarah's story was a vivid reminder that the path toward self-discovery is seldom linear, but with courage, vulnerability, and clarity, it leads to places of profound connection and acceptance. Her heart resonated with an undeniable truth. She was not only an artist but an architect of her happiness. As she immersed herself in her work, she smiled, knowing she had built not just a career, but a bridge to understanding between herself and her father, showcasing that acceptance blooms where passion, honesty, and love reside. The world awaited her next creations, and this was just the beginning of an inspired journey. Now is the moment to reflect on your own passions. You need to subscribe now to the channel for more exclusive emotional stories that inspire transformation. Leave a like now to help reach others who may be seeking their own journey of growth. Comment below your reactions and theories about Sarah's incredible transformation. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this stunning conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share the inspiration.